I argue that the only people that don't experience imposter syndrome are narcissists. Act as if you are confident rather than pretending to be you're not, something you're not. Act as if you're already something that you're becoming. So that is a subtle shift, but a powerful one. Can you imagine how much farther along you would be at your dreams and goals and ambitions if the lack of confidence didn't hold you back? Confidence is a skill that can be developed. And so if you see someone who looks really confident, they're just farther along on that skill development. Instead of thinking, I'll be ready when, say, I'm ready now. And just by saying I'm ready now helps you get in the right mindset to make all the difference. Somebody out there who's half as talented as you are is getting the success and the accomplishing their dreams, and that can be your reality.
Life flows like an endless ocean of stories. We often miss these precious tales as we rush through our days, too consumed by daily struggles to notice the poetry swirling around us. Yet within these stories lie the keys to our past, sparks for our creativity, and fresh winds to fill our sails. I am Obro, a writer based in Melbourne, in quest of those stories with diverse voices that tell them from every corner of the world. Welcome to Stories and Stanza.
Hi, Melissa. Welcome back to Stories and Stanza. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you. And for the listeners, I wanted to say that Melissa has already joined Stories and Stanza for a previous episode where we talked about stage fear, speech anxiety, and we explored some of her techniques. We talked about all the references she had, and the video is in the channel, and I'll link it in the description if anyone wants to listen to the previous one. So I'm looking forward to talking to you again. And for our listeners, do you want to say anything about yourself and especially why we are doing this episode? I'm excited to hear that from you.
Thank you so much for having me back on your podcast. It is an honor to be here and to be chatting with your listeners as well. And I am an award-winning presentation coach. I help people with as a communication consultant. And even though I currently do that, when I first started out in life, I was not excited to give presentations, and so I had my own imposter syndrome that I struggled with and my own nerves that I needed to work through. And I'm excited to dive a little bit more into what that journey looked like. But I'm here to show you that you can conquer your fears, you can achieve your dreams. And is it going to be a little bit uncomfortable? Yes. But if you start to equate uncomfortableness with growth, then you know you're headed in the right direction.
Fantastic. And as someone who has faced this lifelong, and I can relate to this so well. Even when I was starting this podcast, I started in February and I have gotten really good reviews, and the way people have accepted it, that's really amazing. But when I started, I was not sure. And when I released first couple of episodes, I had a very negative comment that said, I don't sound well and I don't know how to speak and carry myself and things like that. That set me back a little bit, that I'm starting this new venture and I want to see this through, and I really enjoy what I'm doing. But then I had this feeling that maybe I'm not doing right. And it has happened many, many times, as we have explored in our previous episode as well. For our listeners, could you explain from the beginning a little bit, as in what is imposter syndrome and what causes it?
Certainly. So when people have imposter syndrome, it's something that they feel like they are convinced that they got lucky in their success, that there's outside factors that contributed to them getting maybe a promotion or something that they view as successful, that it wasn't a result of skill or their effort or hard work. And so, because they feel like they're an imposter, or somebody might figure out at any moment that they didn't actually deserve the success that they have or these great feelings, it's this nagging feeling that follows them. No matter what they accomplish, they feel like they're just not good enough. And so, we often see it when we're doing a new experience, whether that's a new job or a new position or trying out something new, like maybe starting a new podcast or something that's kind of anxiety producing. But the good news is that if you have imposter syndrome, you are not alone. And so sometimes people feel like everybody else is very successful and everybody else feels like they've made it or they've achieved. But really, I argue that the only people that don't experience imposter syndrome are narcissists. So if you're experiencing imposter syndrome, it's something that is completely common, and I have written a whole article on it and how to overcome it, and we'll dive into some of these strategies here, but you will link the article that I've written on that as well. So, this feeling of not feeling adequate or feeling like somebody's going to figure out that you're not actually as talented as you think you are can happen in school or can happen at work. And really, if you're putting pressure on yourself to succeed, it's something that you can feel at any time. And it's something that I've dealt with. And when I first gave my very first speeches when I was in high school, I was not feeling confident in giving them, and the butterflies weren't flying in formation and my face was flushed, but I really wanted to work at it and to feel like I was able to do a better job giving presentations. And so, instead of fighting the self-doubt, I learned how to lean into it. And that's something that I work with my clients on to this day. I began speaking with intention and implementing a lot of different strategies and reminding myself that I've been invited to give this presentation, or you've been invited to have this promotion. And just because it's a new experience, our brain sometimes tries to keep us thinking that this is a new experience and that's scary. But if we start equating a new experience and that uncomfortable feeling with growth, that starts to change our thought process. And that is transformational, with then us able to make those steps toward growth. So know that self-doubt it's a stepping stone. It's not a roadblock.
That is very interesting. I will share something relatable here. So this week I had to make a work presentation to someone else's office, one of our partners, and that was about an area where I have never worked before, and I never had experience of understanding certain terms that they use and things like that. So I was very nervous that how would this presentation go, and when I checked with others who were in the same who were in the same meeting with me, and I asked all of them that, do you want to step up? Do you want to present on my behalf, or maybe something that you want to share? And they said, no, 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 we don't want to go there. You go ahead and you present. And I did the best I could with, even though I was a little bit nervous, and it went well. I mean, there were questions asked which, of course, I didn't know the answers to, but I got it redirected to the right people to get it answered and things like that. So I'm curious to hear from you that you mentioned you have that you had imposter syndrome in the beginning, and now you are such a powerful coach in this space. So how did that transformation happen? I'm really excited to hear your story.
So, when I was a freshman in high school, I competed in a college speech and debate team, and my coaches taught me some wonderful strategies about how to change your thought process. And often when you stand up to speak, people are nervous because, well, really, this goes back to prehistoric times when being in a group meant survival. Right? If you think about it, like way back in caveman days, if you were in a group, it's much easier to tackle this buffalo and then all eat it for dinner than if you were doing it by yourself. Like, you're going to be hard pressed to outrun this buffalo. But in those same ideas of being part of a group means survival still translates to us to this day. And so when we stand up to speak, we're inherently isolating ourselves from the group. And we're inherently feeling like everybody's judging us. And what if I make a mistake and I don't want to embarrass myself? Those are often feelings that people have. They're feelings that I have had when I first started. But what I learned and what I teach my clients as well is that you want as much time as you're thinking about, is everybody staring at me? Are they judging at me? Is my hair looking just right? And what if I say the wrong thing? Is the exact same thoughts that your audience is having about themselves. So there's not a whole lot of room in their brain for them to be judging you because they're filled with thoughts about themselves too. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to look silly or embarrassed or anything like that. And when you're standing up to speak, remember that you're a subject matter expert and you've been invited to speak. And we, as your audience, get uncomfortable for you when you tell us you're uncomfortable, right? So if you say physically, like, I'm really nervous up here, that's super awkward. But if you pretend like you're confident, we're not going to know the difference. And we are rooting for you to give a good speech because us as audience members, it makes us uncomfortable when you're, watching someone uncomfortable. But as I went to give my speeches, I was implementing some of these strategies, and eventually I got to get into the final round. And as I got into the final round, I would take last place, and I was tired of taking last place. And in this one particular tournament, I would get in my own head and I would start thinking like all these speeches are better than mine and all these other speakers are more polished than mine. And it became this self-fulfilling prophecy. And I was tired of taking last place. And so the next tournament, I got into the last round and it was all boys that I was competing against. And I didn't want to be the last speaker and the only girl. And so when I got up to speak, I changed my thought process. And that's one of the powerful things about giving presentations is changing your thought process changes the outcome. So this time my thought process was, I'm going to show you why I deserve first place. I'm going to show you why this is the best speech you have heard all day. And that became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so when you stand up to give a presentation, instead of being worried about people are judging me and does my hair look just right and all those things, if you stand up to give a speech and say, this is going to be the best presentation you've heard all day, and I'm going to show you why I deserve to be up here, you're taking back your power and you're kicking that imposter syndrome to the curb.
I had similar experiences as well. If I remember correctly, like I was really, really afraid when I had to give presentations. They were unavoidable. I had to get up on the stage and talk about something. And you are very right. When I realized that audience is also taking that time to connect and build, it gives me a space where take I can take that advantage, and I can slow down and I can calmly present, and I do not let my underconfidence surface as a speaker. And I believe the same thing holds good for the podcast journey as well, because I have met so many wonderful people and I feel enriched by their experience and their voice on this particular show. The next thing I wanted to ask you is, we often hear faking it until you make it. So, what is your thoughts on this? I'm keen to hear what you feel about it, and how do you suggest we tackle this?
That's a great question. Fake it till you make it has incredible value because sometimes it takes a little courage, and that little courage takes acting. And here's the secret: when you stand up to give a speech, we, as your audience, are not connected to your nerve endings. So we don't know if the butterflies aren't flying in formation or if your palms are sweaty. If you look confident and you take a big, deep breath and you look at the audience before you give your speech, we're going to assume that you are cool, calm, and collected. And so if you act as if, this is what I encourage clients to do, act as if you are confident rather than pretending to be you're not, something you're not. Act as if you're already something that you're becoming. So that is a subtle shift, but a powerful one. Another thing that I ask my clients to do is to connect with their future self. So it's not necessarily about creating this, pretend persona, but it's also about aligning with their vision and their values. And so ask yourself when you're in those situations, what would my future confident self do in this situation? How would they speak? How would they show up? How would they interact with the audience? And then you start embodying those behaviors. And those are small but very important steps towards becoming the person that you want to be. And so it can help us go from faking it to actually becoming confident. Another technique that I think is so powerful, and I work with my clients on, famous athletes do it as well, is called visualization. And recently I was working with a business owner, and she was working on her elevator pitch with me for networking events. And often, sometimes those networking events, at least nowadays, can be virtual. And so on the screen, there's all these beady little eyes staring at you, judging you. That's the feelings that she was having. And we walk through a visualization exercise that I'll tell your audience about because I like them. And it helped her immensely. So, why does it work? Why do famous athletes do this? Because it tricks your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference between you visualizing something and you actually doing something. And everybody knows the first time you do something you might be a little nervous, but the second time you've done something always feels so much better. So wouldn't it be great if you could trick your brain into thinking that you've already done something? And so then when you actually go to do it, it feels so much better. So how does it work? Well, you close your eyes and you picture yourself going through, for example, in my client's example, her pitch. So she would close her eyes, she would picture herself giving her pitch for her networking event. She would picture herself being enthusiastic in as much detail as possible and picture the very last lines, and then take in a deep breath and open your eyes. And that process, by going through it in as much detail as you possibly can, helps trick your brain into thinking you've already done it before. Now you can do this right before you fall asleep or right when you wake up, when your mind is still kind of foggy, and it's a great idea to do it then. You can do it right before you have to do something like give a presentation like the one that you mentioned at the beginning of our time together. So you can do it multiple times and it helps you feel calmer.
That's a very interesting trick. I'll make a note of this and try to follow this next time I feel similar kind of nervousness. So, for our audience, would you like to say anything about your book and how it is going to help them?
Yes, I have written a free ebook for your audience. It has other strategies on how to overcome those feelings of not being confident, and for people who struggle with imposter syndrome. It helps people who are business owners and entrepreneurs as well. because we often go through things where we're in new experiences and we have these big dreams and these big ambitions. And this book is full of actionable strategies. So it teaches you a little bit and then gives you actionable strategies to help stepping into that confidence. Because I know I personally have delayed doing things because I didn't feel confident doing them. And can you imagine how much farther along you would be at your dreams and goals and ambitions if the lack of confidence didn't hold you back? And that's what this ebook is designed to help you step into your confidence and accomplish those big dreams and ambitions. Because at the end of the day, we only have so much time here and we want to make the most of it. And so by finding reasons to not take action, we're not embodying those dreams and stepping into what that could look like.
And for our audience, can you tell who are the people you work with in general, and when you see someone uh, troubled by imposter syndrome, then how do you help them build genuine confidence?
So I work with entrepreneurs and business owners and people who have big goals that they want to help make the world a better place. And I recently worked with an entrepreneur who coaches others in leadership roles, and she's very successful in her own right. She worked in corporate before she decided to become a business owner. And she would get promoted, and after each promotion, she was excited. And then she would think, oh no, I'm going to be exposed. Sooner or later, they're going to figure out that I didn't actually deserve this promotion. Or what if I make a mistake? Then it's going to prove that I'm a fraud. And this cycle continued with every single promotion. And so we worked through this together. And the first step was acknowledging imposter syndrome. So it thrives in secrecy. And so acknowledging that you have it takes away its power. And so, how do you do that? Well, when you say, okay, this is just my syndrome voice talking. This is just my imposter voice talking. And so you separate yourself from that feeling. So that's the first thing. And it tells your inner critic that it's not the only voice in the room and it's not an accurate voice. The next step you can do is to keep a win journal. You can do it in an actual journal. You can keep it in the notes app on your phone so it's always with you. But every time you have a success, no matter how big or small, write it down. Imposter syndrome makes us forget that we have all these accomplishments and these great things that we've achieved. And so revisiting those moments when that little voice inside of our head says, you didn't deserve this, you just got lucky, helps give evidence that, you know what, I do deserve this and I can do this next hard thing because look at all these hard things I've done in the past. It helps provide evidence to help you move forward. And so these are powerful and they counteract that narrative that we have of self-doubt. And I also encourage that it's really important to focus on purpose over perfection. In our Instagram worthy society, where every time you scroll through Instagram, you see somebody that has something that maybe you wish you had, or they have their whole life together. Really, if you focus on purpose over perfection, it can help that. So when clients are able to shift their attention to what is your purpose and how are you going to serve that, and showing up with action really just makes that so much easier to take those steps. And so that purpose fuels your confidence because it's no longer about us, but it's about the impact that we can make. So go back to what is your why? Why do you have this big dream in the first place? And that then helps fuel your confident dreams.
That is very well explained and really, really helpful in the context. The next thing is a little bit tricky. We want to explore about confidence, and I'll give an example before I ask this question. Sometimes what happens is when I've seen this firsthand, like I'm starting a presentation and even I'm going pretty smooth for first part of it. Then some uh, odd questions or some curveball, as we say, comes on our way. We feel, oh no, I'm not ready for that. And maybe that is kind of taking the essence or the power of the presentation away. Okay, so the confidence, like I may have a confidence build up from the beginning, but it can suddenly drop. Okay, so since you are working with people and you help them build confidence about speaking, I want to hear your thoughts and your sort of strategies that you would give to people when they are dealing with such impactful presentations or high power sort of presentations. And I will tell you my answer as well as to what I have seen in my professional experience, how to handle these things best.
Awesome. Well, I know that sometimes when you're in the middle of a presentation like what you're describing and you get a curveball question, it can be the, oh no, how do I answer? But your audience respects you by saying, you know what, that's a great question. I will find out the answer and email you. And then when you follow through, then it shows that you weren't trying to kind of tap dance or fake out an answer. People respect the fact that maybe you don't have all the answers. And so by you saying, I'll look up the answer and get back to you, or I need to investigate this further before I give you an answer to this question, and then maybe refer to XYZ part of your presentation, that is something that people respect. But when you go to give your speech, you talked about warming up, and that is definitely something that I encourage clients as well. Confidence is like a muscle. You're going to need to warm it up. It's just like you wouldn't go to the gym and start lifting right away. You need to warm up so that you don't hurt yourself. And so I recommend doing a power up ritual. So this is a mixture of breathing, visualization, and affirmation as well. So the first thing you want to do some deep, slow breaths to kind of ground yourself, help yourself with your heart rate. I encourage clients to do the 5 by 5 by 5 method. And so that's you breathe in for the count of 5, you hold it for the count of 5, you exhale for the count of 5, and you do that 5 times. And that calms your parasympathetic nervous system. It also redirects your thoughts from being in this loop of what did I get myself into? Do I really have to give this presentation? Is it too late to call in sick? It redirects those thoughts to your breathing, and that helps center and ground you. So next, after you've done your breathing, next is a visualization, which we've talked about. So you picture yourself in as much detail as you can, and that helps you feel calmer as well. And then the last step is affirmations. So you want to think about what your personal mantra is. It could be something like, I'm here to make a difference, or I'm prepared, I'm capable, or I have a message to share, and the audience is lucky to hear it because I can't wait to deliver value. You have to be your own cheerleader sometimes. And by anchoring yourself in these practices, it not only lowers your anxiety, but it also aligns you with your true intentions as well. I also encourage embracing your body language. So Amy Cuddy has this incredible TED Talk, and she's a social psychologist, and she's done research on power poses. And she has shown that by standing confidently, even if you're not feeling confident, it can actually trigger those feelings of strength and ease. So how do you stand? Well, you want to stand up with your legs spread apart and kind of puff your chest out and put your hands behind your hips in like a Superman or Superwoman pose. And you want to hold it for 2 minutes. And that helps take up space. It helps you feel more confident and releases that stress, de-stress hormone, helping you to feel more confident when you go to give your presentation.
That is very interesting. I didn't know that, and I'm sure someone going through these challenges they'll find the inner language, because the body language is a reflection of what we are keeping inside, right? And that suggestion can help people deal with such uncomfortable situations. That is very powerful. What I have personally experienced is that when I get a negative comment in a presentation or an uncomfortable question, as a speaker, what goes on in my mind, that the feedback ties back to my self-worth or confidence or self-awareness. But if I stop that feeling there, and if I detach myself from that emotion, then I feel probably it has nothing to do with my self-worth. It is just a question. Okay. And my responsibility at the moment is to receive that question. It is not something that have to be answered, but be receptive and be open to feedback, but also show that leadership, thought leadership, subtly saying that, okay, I have got you. You have a question or you have a comment, I have got you. And I can assure that it will be looked into or it will be answered in the right way. And I think this has made a lot of difference in the way uh, I have to present at for work or work related sort of things. So I can totally relate what you're saying, that the language that goes on in our mind and the language that we present, like there is a big difference, right? So we can sort of tell our mind to calm down, interrupt that, and then take something that in which we can carry ourselves really well. So can you tell a little bit about when you work with people? Okay, what are some of the common challenges that you see? Like, what is holding them back?
Well, often, and especially in your example as well, the language choices that we use help hold us back. And so when somebody asks a question of, or maybe makes a negative comment, those language choices, it sounds like, then kind of triggers or leads to negative thoughts that you might be having as well, which is a common problem. I know I've had it before. I know my clients have had it as well. And so one of the things I would encourage in that kind of a situation is to first assess if this really has any merit. Because if somebody is having constructive criticism, it shouldn't be said in a mean way. It should be said in a constructive way. So with regard to constructive criticism, I like to believe in the compliment sandwich. So you give them something positive that they did well, an area of improvement, but it should always be said in a constructive way with maybe some ideas of how to say it nicely. It shouldn't just be kind of a knife to the heart. That's not helpful for anybody. And then you end with a compliment as well, kind of a compliment sandwich. And so when someone gives you a negative comment, really think, is there any merit to this? Is there a reason why maybe they're saying this? Are they jealous that I'm the one up here and they want to be up here? And yes, I do think you should have self-improvement and grow. But if somebody's saying something just mean, just to be mean, then try to think of it as, put it out of your mind. Like let that mean comment kind of bounce off you and fly out the window and say, you know what, I deserve to be here. Be your own cheerleader. I should not let that affect my presentation because I know I am reaching out to all of these people. And so kind of along those lines, language is everything. The words that we say, even in casual conversation, helps to shape our reality. So if I'm saying things like, I'm just trying to, or I hope that I can, that kind of subtly undermines our confidence. So I teach clients to say things like, instead of I hope or I'll try, I will. And that subtle shift of I will helps build your confidence as well. There's also 3 words that you can insert into your daily conversation that help you sound more confident to other people. Now, I learned these from Jefferson Fisher. He's a trial lawyer. And so the first word is just the word confident. So, for example, you could say a sentence of, I'm confident I can make that happen. And so just by you using the word confident, it helps your audience or the person who's listening to you think that you're confident. The next one is responsibility. Like, I take full responsibility for what happened. It shows that you're confident enough to take responsibility, right? People who can't take responsibility or blame other people aren't confident people. And the last one, which is my favorite, is ready. So inserting the word ready into a sentence, it shows that you're prepared for the future, you're ready to tackle anything. And so those words help other people see that you're confident. But what about your inner dialogue? Does that impact your confidence as well? Absolutely. Those negative thoughts that we have to be shifted. So I encourage people to listen for ANTS, ANTS, automatic negative thoughts. And so, like in the example that you mentioned, when somebody makes a negative comment and you instantly start taking that as part of your self-worth, know that I am having an automatic negative thought. And your first thought should be really to challenge that. Is this true? Is there evidence to support that that's the case? And I'm going to guess 9 times out of 10 that the opposite of whatever they said is true. And so noticing that this, what your thought is the first step. And then the second step is to reframe it. You want to make it something constructive. Like, I'm going to give this my best shot, or I know I have practiced and I am ready to take this on. Ultimately, confidence is just coming from a place of kindness towards ourselves. And so it's important that we talk to ourselves in a way that's empowering and not demeaning. And that makes all the difference.
Very, very well said. Thank you so much for that. I mean, I know that years before when I started presenting, whenever something negative came on my way, I used to be rattled by it. But now, if something comes, then I diffuse it or do not let that affect me. And I have seen this in presentations in other people as well, like someone who has a really good idea, but just because they got one or two questions coming in the wrong way to them in the presentation, they feel that their self-worth is impacted by that, and then they get very defensive, and then that is when they lose the theme of the presentation. That is where they deviate from there. So yeah, thank you for such beautiful insights. So for our audience, can you uh, tell them as to where to find your ebook? Of course, the any links and everything will be there in the episode description, and how they can work with you.
Yes, I will be sending you the links so that you can put them in the show
Description.
notes.
Yep. Yep.
Yep, on the ebook, and I'll also send the article that I've written on imposter syndrome as well. And I will have a link there for people if they would love to work with me one-on-one. I would be happy to help them overcome their confidence and to step into that next best version of themselves.
That is fantastic. And is there any testimonial that you can share with the audience that you have heard from people who have worked with you, so that they feel a little bit more confident, they get to know who you are, and you have already said that they can refer to your ebook and they can make appointments with you from your website.
Yes, I have worked with quite a host of people over the years, and they are always amazed at how confidence is a skill that can be developed. And so, if you see someone who looks really confident, they're just farther along on that skill development. And I worked with one business owner who was blown away by us working together and digging into where their confidence and lack of confidence and nerves was coming from, and how much more confident they felt, ready to take on video presentations and do podcasts and all kinds of things that are often anxiety producing, frankly, for most of the population. And so by kind of digging into where those nerves and negative thoughts were coming from, he was completely impressed that he was able to rather quickly step into his confidence and live out that purpose and that passion. And that for me is incredibly fulfilling. I love watching people accomplish their dreams and not get sidelined by those feelings of lack of confidence.
Thank you for sharing your insights and your strategies with us today. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share with the audience?
A couple of mindset shifts that you might want to make that
Sure.
maybe we haven't touched on are, maybe instead of thinking, I'll be ready when, say, I'm ready now. And just by saying I'm ready now helps you get in the right mindset to make all the difference. Second, instead of saying, what if I fail? Say, what if I succeed? What if this works out even better than I ever thought that it could have? And by flipping your mind in this way, it helps create this possibility of success. And then instead of saying things like, why me? Say, why not me? Often imposter syndrome makes us feel like we don't deserve success. But if you're committed and you're passionate and you're ready to grow, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do it. And here's the kicker: somebody out there who's half as talented as you are is getting the success and the accomplishing their dreams. And that can be your reality. You have a message to share, and I'd love to hear you do it.
That is amazing. The shift in mindset and the believing that we can do it. Thank you once again, Melissa, for joining Stories in Stanza and sharing such wonderful concepts with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.